Hi, welcome to another episode of the Women Pepreneurs podcast with your host, Mario Quendo. So my guest today is technically not in the pet industry. Her name is Beth Griffith, and I've known Beth for quite some time now. And the reason I had asked her here was sort of like threefold. Okay. We are in the beginning of the year, and you know what? And while looking at your business really should be done earlier to implement things now, it is never too late to make a change in your business. Okay.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about being a neurodivergent business owner. Okay. When about changing directions in your business. Okay. Which Beth just did. All right. And there were a lot of people who might have been a little shocked over that, correct?
Correct. Definitely.
And we're going to talk about the importance of your business finances. So, Beth, I don't know if you want to start off with just telling a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Beth Griffith. I am a branding coach. I do brand strategy with my clients. And when you hear brand, you might think, oh, design and photos and that type of thing. No, we're talking about the heart, the soul, the spirit of your business. How does it manifest? How does it show up for people? And how are you communicating that heart and soul with the world?
Yeah.
So I've been doing this since 2016, and I've been able to work with about 300 different clients on this in various capacities, and it's just been a really good journey. I am autistic. I'm also bipolar, and I have two kids who are also autistic, and I am recently divorced. So here we are. They're all relevant in the scheme of what we'll talk about today.
Well, you know what? Your personal scenario is probably very common, especially in the pet industry. Right. And I know the bipolar diagnosis, that is like brand new.
Brand new. 2 weeks ago today. So yeah, that's been quite interesting because it illuminated why I've had so many of the problems that I've had that I've been trying to compensate for in business. And I kept thinking like, oh, well, I just have to do X, Y, and Z to make it so that I don't crash and burn. And then I realized, oh, wait, no, this is just part of bipolar. There's certainly things you can do to make it less of a dramatic crash, but it's something that I'm likely going to just deal with for my whole life. So having that awareness helped me to like give myself a lot more grace in the areas where I've struggled. So
Okay. So let's talk about grace for a second.
mhm,
I think a lot of times we beat ourselves up, especially women. All right.
mhm,
Trying to be um, the be all end all of everything.
mhm,
And it doesn't matter if you've had whatever your life circumstances are. Okay. I think as women, we tend to have that philosophy. Well, you know what? I got to do it all. I have to. I can't ask people to help because I'm the one who's supposed to help.
mhm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then, you're struggling. All right. And then, you beat yourself up more.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I just talked with a client, I don't know, an hour ago, and we were talking about the fact that she was super good at being consistent with her content for 30 days. And then she just was like, why can I not maintain this for more than 30 days? And she got really into this, like, there's something wrong with me mode. And so I ended up talking to her about that. And I said, you don't have to be consistent with creating content. You just have to be consistent with posting content.
Yeah.
And so you have a creative burst for 30 days. Great. Let's focus on creating 250 reels or TikToks or whatever in that creative burst. And then you're going to be able to post those for, you can post one of those a day for 9 months, basically. And if you're able to do that, you can stop beating yourself up for not being consistent, and you can just wait for that next creative burst to be able to create more content. So just recognizing that, like, if you're a woman, you probably have a lot more on your plate than men do, because a lot of times in a lot of relationships and that type of thing, the woman, if you're running a business, you're expected to run that business, but then you're still expected to do a lot more things at home and with managing a home than men are. And while society is correcting this to a degree, it's still showing up.
Yeah.
So
So a little
raises
fun,
kids.
little fun story. Okay.
uh-huh.
So I was a stay-at-home mom, which means I did everything.
Mhm.
Okay. I said the only thing separating me from Ozzy and Harriet, the Harriet, was I didn't vacuum in a dress and pearls.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But then, I had teenage daughters. I had unappreciative. My husband was very, very unappreciative. Kids were unappreciative. And I literally just sort of like snapped one day. And
Mhm.
I filled out the application at Petco and I became a bather. And I literally started the next day.
Mhm.
They caused quite an upheaval in my house. All right.
Mhm.
So, but here was the thing. I was working now full time and yet still expected to do everything in the house.
Yeah.
All right. So we had this awesome deli across the street from Petco. I would have this really great lunch that would hold me over for quite some time so that, that bowl of cereal for dinner that evening, was just fine by me.
Right?
Fruity Pebbles makes a really great dinner, let me tell you.
Uh-huh.
All right. So until the household started to pick up some of the slack, that's what they were getting for dinner. All right.
Mhm.
Bowls are in the cabinet, spoons are in the drawer, milk is in the refrigerator, and
Uh-huh.
cereal is in the pantry.
Uh-huh.
Have at it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'll clean up a bowl or two after dinner and call it a day.
Right.
But that was probably me being really to the point that I had had enough. And no one really wants to get to that point because that's not good for anybody's well-being.
Yeah, I'm dating somebody right now, and we kind of had a similar moment where I said, I'm happy to cook dinner if the dishes are done.
Yes.
If the kitchen is clean, I will cook a nice dinner.
Yes.
But if not, we've got cereal. You can make mac and cheese.
Yep.
Yep, you're gonna get what's easy if my kitchen isn't clean. So
Yes.
yeah. And I said, I'm happy to help with the doing the dishes and the cleaning the kitchen, but you have to be the driving force behind that. I'm the driving force behind dinner. So if you want nice dinners, this is where I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah. So setting boundaries could be really important. Women, we really need to do that. And that can relate to that, we're not setting boundaries at home. We're not setting boundaries in our business.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that one of the things is somebody will hear the story is that like you and I just told, and they're going to say, yeah, but I can't do that because, well, it won't work in my situation because, yeah, well, you
Yeah,
have
no.
to just make
So,
that peace with it yourself first.
okay. So let me tell you how that changed in my household. Okay.
Mhm.
So my husband basically came out with a statement, no wife of mine will work. You were still married, by the way.
Mhm.
No wife of mine will work. And my daughter, the one that was still at home, the others were away at school, were like, my mother will not work. I will make you quit.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. So my husband, I literally grabbed, because he had his key on his pants. I grabbed his key ring, pushed him out the door, locked the door, went up to the bedroom, started throwing all his stuff out the bedroom window onto the driveway, and then threw his car keys onto the driveway.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, and when for my daughter, that's Pooh Bear. There says hello.
Fluttershy's here too.
So for my daughter, I lived in Connecticut at the time. So in Kingston, New York was the military school.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the way that worked is that if you filled out an application, it was a $2,500 non-refundable deposit.
Mhm.
I'm sure they were simply tired of parents like filling out applications and wasting their time.
Right. Right.
So I grabbed the application, I filled it out, I stapled the check to it, and I told my daughter, was like a Friday. This goes out on Monday. You're going, I would rather spend $25,000 than lose 2,500. All right. And
Mhm.
her response to me was, well, how are they going to keep me there? And I'm like, I don't care how they keep you there. I'm sure they have plenty of experience on that. They are a
Right.
military school.
Right.
So by Monday, she wasn't 100%. She was way better.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, sometimes doing it nicely and gradually is not going to work.
Right.
Right. And I tried nice and gradual for some time before I said, this is not working.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
If I'm not the wife for you, that's fine. Then go find yourself another one who is.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And just yeah, I asked for a divorce, almost 5 months ago now, and it's we just have all these stories that we can't because of our situation in one way or another. But you really can just like put your foot down and say, "This is how I'm living my life. You're either in or you're out."
Yeah.
And
And to put things into perspective for the pet industry, at the time I made that determination, I was a bather. Okay. I was not a
right,
groomer.
right, right. It's a
Okay.
big decision. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was pretty sure I was making minimum wage. Okay.
Right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'm at, where like I have um my son, his autism needs are high, extremely high. So I can't just like go out and get a job at some location or that type of thing. I have to make it work at home. He gets, because of his autism, he gets sick frequently because he gets so overwhelmed by things. His immune system drops frequently and he'll get very sick. So you can't go have a job if you're going to have to like not work for 3 weeks every 2 months or whatever. And so yeah, I mean, absolutely, you have to like make some really bold decisions sometimes.
So, you know, again, like really bold decisions have to be made. You have to
Mhm.
be willing to like follow through on those bold.
Stand
So
your ground. Mhm.
stand your ground. And yes, there are people who are in really bad situations. But there is help if you look for it. But
Mhm.
again, you have to be willing to look for it. All right.
Mhm.
And people in your circle need to be able to help you if they approach you, if you approach them. You have to know who to approach, I guess this might be a better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of have to spend the time on the introspection to see like where am I tolerating things that are causing these problems? And sometimes that's the hardest part. That part itself can take the longest amount of time, I think.
Yes. Right. And that even followed through in my business for a long time because, I had to make it work.
Hmm.
There's like no
Had no
option.
option.
Had
Hmm.
no option, had to make it work. But I also felt for a long time I had to make it work. All
Yeah.
right. Um, Seeking help or looking for help was difficult. All right.
Hmm.
Getting that education or getting that first coach was difficult. All right.
Hmm.
One thing though that I knew right out of the gate that I was not going to do is I was not going to do my taxes.
Yeah.
And that was actually a very easy decision for me. So it's almost kind of like mind boggling to me how that was such an easy decision that I knew I couldn't do something. All
Yeah.
right. And that I would pay somebody to do it. And why didn't that relate to other parts of my business that, you know what, um, I need help here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So uh I think that it's really interesting how we'll justify, and it goes back to that self-awareness piece of like how long it can take to realize something. But when it comes to something like taxes or legal issues or that type of thing, we're like, oh, I'm not qualified, or this isn't the best use of my time, or that type of thing. And we're just it's so easy to outsource those things, but we can't justify it. Um, a lot of times, one of the interesting things, just kind of tying into bookkeeping and tracking your numbers and that type of thing is neurodivergent people. They struggle with a few different things, executive functioning, so the ability to identify, I need to do this and this and this and this, as well as object permanence, so they don't remember that something exists if they can't see it, and time blindness, where you don't recognize that you have to do something until it's upon you. So I've talked to lots of neurodivergent people, which we've talked in the past about how it's actually very logical that there's a lot of neurodivergent people in the pet industry. In the pet industry, with autism in particular, autistic women, one of the hallmark signs of an autistic woman is she loves animals a lot of times. It's not an absolute, not every single woman, not every single case, but a huge love for animals is one of the signs, as well as doing things with your hands, and being very focused and all in on mastering something, being the best at whatever it is that you're doing. So we do see a lot of neurodivergent women in the pet industry. But knowing that there's those three traits, things like bookkeeping or taxes or your numbers, we just ignore those because you can't see it until it's urgent and it has to be done right now. And how do I even process how to get this done at this point?
All right. So for those, what suggestions would you be for somebody who has executive dysfunction or object permanence? How do you recommend that they get a little bit more, I hate to use the word focused. How do they get things done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to your numbers specifically, when it comes to data, that type of thing, it's really valuable if you'll just outsource that. So I've talked with some neurodivergent people who they hire a bookkeeper, but the bookkeeper doesn't specialize in working with neurodivergent people. So that bookkeeper has been waiting for them to send their numbers over all year. And so they're actually paying somebody to do the thing, but it's not being done and delivered in a way that actually works with them. And so when I start working with somebody, we get on a call and we sit there for an hour and they upload all of their files, or they give me like their LastPass access to things or whatever. They do it right there. And I'm sitting there right there staring at them while they do it. And so there's no like, oh, I'll do it later. Because no, you won't. Bless your heart. No, you won't. And that's okay. Admit those things to yourself. And so if you can start to look for people who the way that they do, maybe they're not specifically delivering services for neurodivergent people, but the way that they deliver it works with neurodivergence, that is huge. And so, yeah, so looking for people like, we're going to sit down and we're going to get your numbers together. Something that I also do with the way that I now run my group program is when we're onboarding, they give me LastPass access to their social media. I don't care to go look through your private things, your messages, trust me. I'm just going in and I'm looking at your data and analytics. And I collect those data and analytics, and then I give you those data and analytics in a video that's, a link to it is texted to you, because I know you're not going to check your email. You're not going to go check that Google Drive. You're not going to do those things. You're getting it texted to you so that you can just hit that button and get that information. And so awareness about looking at, this is another piece of looking at your numbers. A lot of you are probably trying so hard to make things work. So you are paying for services, you are paying for products, you are paying for things, but they're not things that work with who you are, how you work, that type of thing. And so additionally, in looking at your numbers, we're able to look at, okay, so I'm spending X amount of money over here and on a product or a service that doesn't work for me. How can I move that money or even a portion of that money into something that does work for me?
Okay. All right. So, I was going to say talking about finances last, but we were already talking about it. So we're going to talk about it now.
Okay.
Okay. So, um, when making decisions on your business, all right,
Mhm.
you really can't make effective decisions if you don't know what your finances are.
Mhm.
All right.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to make changes, and you know what, every year this changes to positive educational training, and it's because I can see what's working, what's not working. And if I want to do something that might be different, am I in a position to take a chance on something?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So knowing your those dollars and where you're spending money, where you're not spending money is really important. And I mean, I once a week I sit down, I do my books. It's a habit. It's become a habit. But it was for me, it wasn't always a habit. And I was that person, not quite the whole year, but it would go for like a month at a time. And then I would look at it and think, oh my God, it's been a month. I got 4 weeks to do. I don't want to do it. Okay.
Mhm.
And then it becomes a chore.
Yes.
uh,
Absolutely.
you
Uh,
know?
and it's not a guiding force, it's not like your guiding light that's helping you make decisions throughout the year. And so you made a thousand decisions that probably derailed your original plan. So if you look at like year by year by year, you look at it, and at the end of every year, you're like, I had such great plans for this year. And then I went off on side tangents again. You probably aren't looking at your numbers.
Yeah. So what I started to do is like got myself caught up, and that was a chore. Okay. That I did not
Mhm.
want to do, but I did it. Okay.
Mhm.
And then I knew I had to do it every week, had to do it every single week.
Yeah.
So I literally, and groomers get this. This is the only reason so many of us actually have clean dogs is because we schedule our dogs in our appointment book. Right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I scheduled my books in my appointment book.
Mhm.
So, and it was a Friday, and to this day, and you're talking, oh my God, almost 15 more plus years later. Okay. Every Friday, I do my books. That's admin day.
Mhm.
And even if I don't feel like doing it,
Yeah.
it was scheduled, but I had to schedule that. It'd be like, it's my book. I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I scheduled the time to do it. And in the beginning, all right, again, because it's something I didn't want to do,
Mhm.
schedule an alarm.
Mhm.
So at 4 o'clock on Friday, that alarm went off, and I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I got to do it." And it took a while. It probably took me close to 2 years to doing it that way before it became a habit.
Yeah.
And I'm not neurodiverse. Okay. I'm talking this is just something I did not want to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah. One of the things that I know that you've talked to me about, you're able to just like write a to-do list and do it.
Yes.
And knowing that, yeah, it took you 2 years. And I think that that's one of those things, is that a lot of neurodivergent people, they're immediately like, why do I struggle with this? And you feel like giving up and walking away from it, even though it would be the best thing for you in your business. But I love that you said that, because it gives people permission, like, it might take me 2 years for this to actually be something that sticks
Yeah.
to.
So like I said, every Friday, well, today's Friday, or today's my books. I gotta total things up, add them up, move them over, so that at any given time I could tell you right now the amount of money that I have made and the amount of money I have spent, and in what category, just by glancing down at my book over here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's a beautiful place to be. All right. Because at the end of the year, it's going to take me literally, I don't know, minute and a half to get my taxes ready for my accountant.
So I'm curious, when it comes to, you mentioned that you can see the categories. What difference does it make for you to see the categories of like where your money is coming in and going out?
All right. Specifically going out. Okay.
Mhm. Okay.
So I know what I'm spending. And if it looks like boy, I'm spending a lot of money in this category. Why am I spending the money in this category? Now, it might be very legitimate. It might be, oh, this is all my continuing education.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I look at the amount that I've spent in continuation, and then I compare what I made last year to this year. And if there's a jump, oh yeah, that was a really good investment.
Right.
But I have that here for me to look at. Right.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like I could waste money on is the latest and greatest software doodad out there. And I'm like, did I really need to spend $300 on this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, in looking at people's numbers, that's one of the biggest areas where I think I see that is people buy this software, that software, they're not even using it,
Yeah.
but they're
Mhm.
paying for it because of the idea that I'm going to use it someday.
Yeah. And here again, your neurotypical person telling you, yeah, I have purchased software I have never used.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it
Exactly.
sounded like a good idea at the time. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just thinking now, well, you know what? Maybe I just hire someone to do that.
Yeah. So I used to spend hundreds of dollars every month on different softwares and tech and blah, blah, blah. And so when I separated from my ex, all of a sudden I had to look at all of these numbers and I was like, well, where can I cut spending? Because that's kind of important right now. And I realized that I'm spending hundreds of dollars every month on various tech, when in reality, to run my business, I could do it for $50 a month. I
Yeah.
really could. And so it was just a big old kick in the butt, and having to let go of a lot of pride, that like, oh, well, my form isn't going to look as fancy because it's in Google instead of Kajabi. But you know what? When I am only paying, $16 a month or whatever for Google, feels a whole lot better than $200 a month. That's so many meals, that's so much stuff.
And, for us groomers, is how many dogs do I have to groom to pay for that?
Right.
And
Right.
that's really where I think a lot of us really understand the finances, right? So
Yeah.
I would know that my gas, my fuel was in alignment if I kept it every week, one dog. And if I was spending more than one dog in fuel, that meant I needed to tighten up my area. Where am I driving that's costing me that much more? And if it's because prices are going up, then that means that one dog price needs to go up as well to cover the fuel.
I love that.
Sometimes it's looking at things from a different angle. And I know groomers get the whole, how many dogs will it
Mhm.
take?
Yeah. Well, and then just thinking about like you getting to keep that money for yourself versus you getting to like give that money to somebody else for you to not even use the thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And or maybe you are using the thing, but there's a cheaper way to go about it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make your job harder. So
Well, yeah, and then there's also the whole time factor goes in there. So I got a bunch of software on creating videos, and I don't really want to create videos. Okay.
uh, that's self-awareness again.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably really don't want to do that. Okay. So what if I just like hire someone? So I have a friend, and she makes little videos. They're quick. She enjoys doing it. And she gives me a bill, and I pay the bill. And
Mhm.
we're both very happy because I didn't have to actually create that.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And then yeah, video is just so huge for your social media reach right now. I'm sure that the analytics end up showing how much it's worth what you're paying there for that.
Yeah. Again, it's my time not to do that.
Right.
You know, how much,
Right.
I mean, she can crank them out in however long she takes to crank it out. I know if I'm going to crank that out, it's going to take me 5 times as long.
Yep. Absolutely.
And what can I do to make money in that big chunk of time that's going to be more than what I'm going to pay her to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And we're back. I always say one of these days, because this also goes up on YouTube, I'm gonna get like those little cards that they have at for wrestling matches or boxing matches. And just
Yes. I love it. You should totally do that.
yeah. So again, you know what? I have to create that. I can go into Canva and do that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, that's fun.
So, and I may do that. I might do that today. I don't know. But you know what? That's actually going to go on my to-do list, so it will get done.
Perfect.
Um, so anyway, so other things I wanted to talk about. So, actually, before we even get into neurodivergency, you changed track on your business, and it was one day you're doing this, and another day you decided you were doing something else. Or I'm sure it wasn't like there was time frame in there that nobody else saw. It
Right.
was you all knew you were doing this, and then you announced you were doing that. And some people I saw when you posted it, got really upset with you.
Yeah. So as soon as I really switched, because I've done a lot of stuff where it's been less tangible than data, than numbers, than bookkeeping, than that type of thing. It was, I've kind of worked in this realm where we worked a lot in the mindset, in the heart, the spirit of your brand, that type of thing. So then all of a sudden we bring in numbers and we bring in data, and it's a big shift for people to wrap their heads around. What? This is so tangible. This is so literal. And but what happened was I'm, getting a divorce, and I look at all of my numbers and I'm like, this is just absolute bull crap. This is absolute nonsense that I know that I'm not spending more than most of those people out there. But I also see so many people that they're not running a 6-figure business. They're not running a 7-figure business, but they're spending money and they're acting like they are. They're buying and they're paying for things as if they're running a much bigger business, instead of buying and spending money and delivering as if they're the size of business that they actually are. And there's certainly something to investing and stretching yourself. Absolutely, like, do it. But there's also needless spending that's hurting your life. It's hurting your lifestyle. A lot of times when we're running a business, we forget about the fact that, like, we're running this so that it can pay for our life, so that it can pay for our lifestyle. And so we stop paying. When you're not paying attention to those numbers, you're not paying attention to the data, you can't improve on it. For me, it was just one of those really, really hard moments where I was looking at my own numbers and I was like, what the heck have I been doing here? Like, why have I just been throwing money away because my life was paid for? So I didn't need to. And I realized, light bulb moment, there are so many people doing this exact same thing, and they need the wake up call in a different way. They need the wake up call coming through my content instead of the wake up call coming through them having this same moment.
Okay. So when you decided to make that switch from your business, all right,
Mhm.
what went into that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, you're fine. So one of the things was, all of a sudden I started to look at where are some of the places that I'm double spending money. And so, for example, I've always used Zoom, which I love Zoom. It's just not something that I'm going to be using in my business for right now. And so as I was looking at my numbers, I thought, well, I know that it's only $15 for Zoom per month. But $15 is like a sandwich at my favorite restaurant, my favorite sandwich place. And so I can just use Google Meet, which I am literally already paying for, or I can keep paying for Zoom. And so it started to be, as opposed to like lack mindset of like, oh my goodness, well, I can't spend this, I can't spend this, I can't spend this. It's, where can I better spend this? Where can I take this money that I'm already spending it and enjoy my life more? And so I started to realize that I was doing this in lots of different places. But one of the biggest things that I realized is that women are expected to run a very different business than a man would at that same level. And so I ended up looking around in my industry, and there were men delivering their programs and delivering their courses through Google Drive. And I thought, why is it that as a woman, there's this expectation that I'm going to be delivering it through this more expensive way of delivering? I'm curious, have you seen that in the pet industry, Mary, like where men deliver one quality and women end up delivering another?
No, I don't think so. Not so much, because it's first of all, it's a very female dominated industry.
That makes sense.
Okay. So the women have really set the bars, and there's different ways of delivering pet grooming. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can deliver it via mobile grooming van, house call grooming, or a physical location, whether that's a shop or a vet's office or your own home-based shop. Okay. And then there's different levels even within that. Okay.
Mhm.
So mobile grooming tends to be higher end to start off with, but even within that, there's still different levels, okay, of the service you provide. And what I mean by that is that the price point you could have different price points within the same like medium type thing. All
Yeah.
right. So shops can be where they're more about volume, so the price is lower, and other shops where it's more about one-on-one time, or with the services that you're offering, and that tends to be higher priced, right?
Mhm.
And I don't see any difference between more men do it this way or more men do it that way. It seems to be really homogenous as far as that is concerned.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So one of the things that I think of is just going back to your story from earlier about the cereal, right? Where you said, I'm happy to have Fruity Pebbles. Like you guys can adjust to what's happening here, or you can't. And I kind of had to have that moment with my business of this is how I'm going to be doing things moving forward. You're either on board with it or you're not.
Okay.
And really, really communicating that, making it very clear that my content is designed for this particular type of woman. If that's not you, I don't care if you don't think my content applies to you.
Okay. So then when you make that change, all right,
Mhm.
you're going to lose people, but you're going to gain other people. So, and I think that is a switch that can be really hard, especially in our industry.
Yeah.
Of going that, you know what, if I make a change, I'm going to lose these people. All right.
And can you flip that mindset too of like, yeah, you're going to lose those people, but not only are you going to gain these other people, but you're going to gain the quality of life that you actually wanted to go with that.
Yeah, because what happens is that when we move along, go along in our businesses, and we're no longer happy doing what it is we're doing. All right.
Mhm.
That's what leads to burnout.
Mhm.
And that passion that you have becomes a job. It's
Yes.
not a career, it's a job. So that's what your career just went. It's terrible. It's a horrible place. And yeah, I've been there too. Until I had to, like, you know what, I was no longer happy. And I realized what was the core part of my unhappiness. All right. And really what it was stemming from was these two stupid little miniature poodles.
Oh.
Two very specific poodles that made me dread grooming. It started out just dreading grooming them, but then it went into, it started to it's like a virus. It just spreads. So then I started like not wanting to groom poodles, period. And then, that spilled out even further until I got rid of those two poodles and made changes with it. I made the change at that point and these two, just so that you understand, these two poodles, they were clean feet. So tugged for each of their feet. So that's 8 feet pulling while you're trying to shave their feet. And then they went limp for the rest of the groom.
Goodness.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so I tried the whole get that happy price, and I realized I did not have a happy price for these two dogs. They needed to go. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I cried uncle. I ditched them. Right.
Yep.
And that's not a weakness. Realizing you can't do something. All
Mhm.
right. And I also did that with a Wheaten Terrier too. All right.
Yeah.
Decided I cannot do this. Right.
Yeah.
Let them go. Became much happier. But then I also looked at part of the reason that was a problem. Those two dogs hurt my wrist. They hurt my wrist so bad that it was impacting my grooming career.
Oh, wow.
So one of the rules I had to do was I had to stop doing shaved feet on poodles.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I went to my clients and I told them with the poodles, I can't do shaved feet anymore. If you want shaved feet, I can recommend somebody else for you. You know what? I didn't lose a single client over that.
Wow.
It's, can you shave them close? Yeah, I can shave them close. Just not going to shave clean feet on them anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So you can make changes to your business. Right. I decided that I was not working late. I mean, I wanted to be home by 4:00, the latest. And in the wintertime, I wanted to be home by 3:00 because I wanted my van clean and in my driveway. And I was in my house before it got dark outside. All right. And those were rules that I instituted in my business because that's what made sense for me.
Mhm.
Right. You can make things that make sense for you. Yes, you will lose. I will lose that person that's looking for that groom later on in the day or in the evening. I'm not working in the evening. All right. But I know a lot of groomers who that they literally don't start grooming till like 1:00 in the afternoon, groom all the way to 9:00 at night. And that works for them.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
So you have to decide what works for you and go what makes you happy. Because if you're not happy, you take your career, you turn it into a job.
Yeah, and then also just thinking about like how much is it costing you to do that thing that you hate? Because if you are doing that thing that you hate and you're losing your stamina, you're losing your energy, you're feeling burnt out,
Yep.
not only it's you're like, oh well, it's making me X $100, right?
Yeah.
But what if it's actually costing you X $1,000 because you're so burnt out and you're so angry about it
Yep.
that you're not showing up for your business the way that you would be if you had just grooms that you loved.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of those really important other factors you have to look at with your numbers is where am I making my money? But like where are these areas where I'm making my money, making it so that I can make more money? Or are they just, they're making me money, but they're really costing me way more than they're making me.
Yeah. Because it's not only your mental health, it's when your mental health starts to slide, your physical health starts to slide as well. So how many sick days are you taking? All right.
Mhm.
How many times you just don't feel well, or you know what, you have no energy, so you don't want to do anything.
Or if your wrists hurt, how many times are you having to like cancel another dog because you have an injury from this other dog?
Yeah. Or worse, you're not canceling those dogs and you're working through the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a cost to that for sure.
Yeah.
And how much are you then having to pay in physical therapy bills
Yep.
for your wrists because
Yep.
of that?
Yep.
Totally.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, and the other thing, and actually, before we get into being neurodivergent as a business owner, let's take the second commercial break.
Okay.
And we're back. So, you are neurodivergent.
Yes.
Okay. And so how has that impacted how you run a business? How do you work around being in a neurotypical world? Because I see it all the time. All right. Business owners complaining about their employees. Well, she's never on time, you know. Um,
Yeah.
she's always 10 minutes late. She's always, I should just tell her to come 10 minutes earlier. And I'm like, yeah, that might be a solution there, Instead
Uh-huh.
of tell her to come in at 9, tell her to come in. She needs to be there at 8:30.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the big things is understanding what type of neurodivergence do you have.
Yeah.
So when we start to understand what type of neurodivergence that somebody has, we're able to start to identify, okay, so typically speaking, with autism or ADHD, we see time blindness. We see a lack of object permanence. So object permanence is if it's not right in front of me, I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Those types of things. So when you can start to identify, okay, so I have ADHD, I have autism, or I'm bipolar, or whatever, right? So we can start to look at, these are the traits of this neurodivergence. And how does that impact me in my business? Okay, so lack of object permanence. All right, I forget about my numbers. I forget to comment on social media. I forget to message people back in Messenger because I don't look in Messenger. I look in the main app on Facebook, right? So we start to look at object permanence is impacting my business in X, Y, and Z ways. How do I now structure and design my business around this? Do I just have a hard and fast, if you want to talk to me, you cannot do it via this means, all right? So I do not message people back who message me in X location that I forget to look. If I forget to look at my numbers, okay, cool. I need to outsource that in a way that somebody else is going to put those numbers right in front of me on a regular basis so that I can make data-driven decisions. We look at some, for example, with autism or bipolar or even ADHD, mood can be a huge thing. And so it's a hot temper more with bipolar than, some of the others. You might find that you need to have somebody else who does some of the customer service side of things. But until you develop the awareness of, okay, because I am autistic, I have X, Y, and Z traits, and then you have to take it the step further. All right, what problems are showing up in my business because of this? Then you're going to be able to make some protocols, make some policies, procedures, those types of things for, this is my hard and fast rule. This is my Fruity Pebbles rule for you guys for how this business will run, because I'm designing my business around me first. It's not designed around that poodle that's hurting my wrists. My business is designed around me. But until you know, another thing that you can do is look at, okay, well, these are the problems that are showing up in my business. What neurodivergent traits might be connected to that? And how can I restructure and design that so that that object does show up back in front of me, so that I'm not the one that's in the situation that needs to handle it when somebody is angry and I'm likely to lash out. Those types of things.
Okay. All right. And so, all right, how important is a diagnosis? Start there.
I am against most of social media. I think a diagnosis is incredibly important. So there's lots and lots of people who believe that you can self-diagnose. So I originally self-diagnosed with autism, went and got evaluated. You are correct. Yes, right. So like I was able to get that evaluation. However, I also was like, I feel like I'm ADHD. And so I went in just 2 weeks ago to get an ADHD eval so that I could get meds so that I could focus better in business, right? But I go in for the ADHD eval and she's asking me some questions, and she ends up saying, so that's actually more often seen in bipolar than ADHD. And so I do have an ADHD eval, a month out, so I could have both. But bipolar is something that, again, it's debated whether you have to be on meds for the rest of your life or not. At this point in my life, I need meds. Okay, so when it comes to bipolar, it's a completely different animal in how it's treated than ADHD. And so what looked like ADHD to me, to a psychiatrist, she knew it wasn't. So in my opinion, get evaluated.
Okay. And I'll agree with that, because if you need to be on medications, you want to be on the correct medications.
Yes, exactly. And so, if I just went and, took meds or whatever to treat ADHD, but it's bipolar, it's not going to take off the mania that I'll experience. It's not going to help me to balance the depression, because those aren't the elements of ADHD. So it's a different animal.
All right. So, and here's another thing too. Mental health, mental diagnostic stigmas. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that you can't run a business because you're mentally ill.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's dispel that right now.
First off, I honestly believe that people who struggle with mental illness or neurodivergence, either one, you're going to probably do better in a business than working for somebody else, because other people aren't as understanding about what shows up with your mental illness. And so you also don't get the grace from somebody else for the behaviors or things that are going to show up, and you can't correct their business to account for your mental illness or neurodivergence, either one. But one of the things that's really important to me is speaking out and sharing, like, okay, bipolar, I cried for a straight week after I found out, because there's so much "you're crazy" stigma around bipolar. People don't understand what it is. They don't understand that it's about high and low moods, and that it's not about people being crazy, but the stigma is there. The more business owners that we can get speaking out and saying, hey, I'm bipolar. I have chronic depression, have clinical depression, right? Whatever it is, the more people that we can get speaking out and showing that, like, okay, a lot of my creative ideas are because of bipolar. All of a sudden, oh, well, it opens up things so much. We've seen a lot of this with autism and ADHD, where people being open about being autistic or being ADHD, it's started to transform the stigma around it. We don't have the same change happening yet around a lot of mental illness, but it's important for people to speak up, in my opinion.
And absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right. So do you have any words of wisdom you want to share?
Yeah. So my biggest thing is base your business on you. Build your business based on what you're doing, what you're successfully doing. Know your numbers so that you can come back to, all right, how do I do more of what's coming natural to me that's making the business the most money? When you understand yourself and when you understand your numbers together, it opens up so many possibilities for what you're going to be able to do in your business that you couldn't do before. And yeah, that self-awareness is where it's all at.
All right, Beth, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everybody join me next week when I interview another woman making a difference in the pet industry.